Hi and welcome to this video about why there's rarely a single correct answer in internet marketing. As you start getting your website and your content and your squeeze pages and promotion and all the other stuff that makes up internet marketing worked out, it really is worth remembering that there's almost never one single correct answer for most of the questions that will crop up. Some things will have their staunch supporters. WordPress seems to do that for website design. Apple's do it for phones and computers, and don't get people started on the browser wars between Chrome and Firefox and Internet Explorer, or Edge as Microsoft now want to call it, because Internet Explorer had so many people that didn't like it. And other things will be more open with a horses for courses response, and others just may not have a simple solution at all. Fortunately, that's rare nowadays. Chances are if it's been done elsewhere, especially if it's been done elsewhere in lots of different places, then you can get it pretty much free or cheap. Programmers are weird like that. It's one of the reasons open source programs like WordPress exist. It's almost as though programmers do it for the sort of kudos of, yeah, been there, done that, here it is. For instance, the operating system on your phone wasn't cheap to develop, and if it's Android based, it's theoretically free, although there's an article on the web that says it's otherwise in practice because there's a testing fee that others charge, third parties charge. From what I can work out, Google themselves don't get a cut of that. But that's digressing a bit, because wherever you turn in internet marketing, you'll hit questions that need answering, and you run up against questions all the time. Most of them will seem to demand an answer, partly because our minds really hate it when things are left unanswered, even if they don't really need an answer now, if ever at all. And okay, let's do a quick digression on how our minds need answers. If you ever went to Saturday morning cinema, or if you've ever watched a TV series like 24, then you'll know that they almost always leave you with a cliffhanger, and some TV series are doing that at the end of each season as well. And you'll find that elsewhere on the web, you'll find it in videos, you'll find it on blog posts, all sorts of coming soon type things. And that unanswered question plays on your mind. It tries to close the loop and resolve the answer, even though your mind may not know, because the scriptwriters may not have written the solution yet. That especially happens series to series on TV shows, where one will end and the next one actually hasn't started recording yet. And it kind of almost forces you to watch the next episode. And you can do the same with your sales letters and website content. You can leave unanswered questions quietly disrupting the minds of your readers, sometimes even noisily disrupting, even though you might not hear them shouted out loud. And those open loops, which is what they're called, work brilliantly. That's why top copywriters are paid big money, and why a lot of them know rather more than they're going to tell you about neurolinguistic programming. Most of them won't admit to using it, but most of them do. And that includes me. I've trained in NLP, neurolinguistic programming, and I use it without really thinking about it. It's become second nature, and I'll just drop things called embedded commands into places, or deliberately or not deliberately confuse things or leave open loops. Quite often I'll digress, so it's not always deliberate, but quite often it is. And I'm relatively amateur on this. Some of the real pros I know can leave your head spinning if they decide to go down that kind of route. And others challenge you to spot all the methods they've used. There's one site I've looked at that does that, and he'll sort of say, well, I've used X number of techniques, and you're thinking, how many? I've only spotted half that. But you don't need to know NLP to do that. A guy called Joe Sugarman of Blue Blocker Sunglasses used misspellings in some of his adverts and offered a discount for every single misspelling found. And no one got the full available discount, but lots of people engaged with the advert, and because of that, more people bought than would have done if you'd just left it as plain boring advert. So you could do something like that. That works a treat. You apparently got told off lots and lots of times by people saying, I just had to read your whole advert. Okay, that's good. And it's our quest for answers again. And in that particular case, how many words weren't spelled correctly? But the next thing is the KISS acronym. And I find the best way most of the time is to follow KISS, which is keep it simple, stupid principle. Because there are enough complicated things on the web without us overthinking and adding to them. And Einstein is quoted as saying, if you can't explain it to a 6-year-old, you don't understand it yourself, and that's quite a good principle to go by. May or may not work with rocket science, but even that you could demonstrate, usually with an empty soft drinks bottle and a foot pump, so a bit of water as well. That's quite fun. So there's a lot to Einstein's thought, because most of us tend to overcomplicate things, and if you don't believe me, take a look at your phone. Yeah, sure, it makes phone calls, but it also sends text messages, takes still and moving photos, videos, gathers your email, checks the progress of your Amazon and eBay orders, tells you what the weather is going to be, lets you browse the web, order food, keeps you fit, tracks where your friends and family are, and in reality it's not a very simple device at all. And those examples are just scratching the surface. Both Apple and Android devices both have over 1.5 million apps to choose from, and that was a figure in mid-2015, so by the time you're watching this, there'll be more. So keeping things simple is probably essential, because life's just too complicated in so many different areas. And keeping things simple could even be a selling point for whatever you're trying to promote. I know it's one of the reasons a meditation program I promote sells so well, because it's just so simple to use. It doesn't take much time, which is the other thing that should be on your keep it simple list, because time is something nearly everyone would like to have more of. But going back to there being no single right answer, the other really important thing to remember is almost nothing is set in stone, because that ties in very much with the single right answer bit, or no single right answer. You can change hosts, you can change domain name, you can change autoresponder company, software used on the site, and near enough everything else in your online business plan. Some of those changes might be forced on you if your site gets too popular. You'll find that you outgrow your, in quote marks, unlimited hosting plan, that kind of thing. That's kind of a nice problem to have. And other changes could just be a sign of the times, because, for instance, when I first started on the web, a programming language called Perl was the only way to make websites not be simple static pages. Now, Perl is almost a dinosaur, and getting a Perl programmer is nowhere near as easy as it was a decade ago. Now, it's PHP or Python or JavaScript or one of lots of other solutions. Again, that no single right answer. And each of them is better for certain things than others, and they may even be brought in to help each other out, because most of the websites I work with use PHP and JavaScript in a way that works to each to its strengths, and chances are you do the same whether you know it or not. And sure, some changes may be more difficult than others, so going back to that, you probably don't want to change host for a large website. Moving from one host to another or changing the underlying database structure of a site is not recommended if you want an easy life, and I've been through probably both of those, either as the geek programmer or as an end user, or both. So not always fun, but yeah, they're changeable if you don't get them right in the first place, and often change with outside help, because bigger problems tend to need a bigger skill set. And yeah, sure, there might be some dented pride occasionally, but a bit like a bad hair day, chances are you're the only person who'll care enough to notice. Think about that one. Or it could be like when someone's lost their lines in a speech or a presentation, which I've probably done a couple of times in this video already, maybe more. If they don't make a fuss about it, they're almost certainly the only person to notice. And another thing to keep in mind is that help is almost always available. People on the web have a wide variety of skills, knowledge, everything from web novice to veteran and all points between in almost any subject you care to name, and a lot you haven't even thought about. And those people are everywhere. They're on forums you use, they're on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, all that kind of thing. I watched a program recently about someone who was looking for archaeologists to go down a cave because they'd found a lot of prehistoric bones, and he advertised on Facebook for skinny archaeologists, whatever they're called, paleontologists, something like that, who weren't claustrophobic, and he was expecting 2 or 3 people and got 50. So yeah. And lots of people are just glad to be asked to help. It's almost a badge of honour, and often the only payment they'll expect is a simple thank you, or either personally or publicly. But if you can't get help using things like Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn or Google Plus or whatever, your supplier, your hosting company, your autoresponder supplier and so on can often help. They're used to it, just ask them. They've probably got a team, probably called support, because the chance of you being the first person to ask a particular question is incredibly low. I've managed it once, to my knowledge, in the last 30 years, and I do ask quite a few questions, and I delve quite deep into things when I'm in the right frame of mind. So yeah, that's an unanswered part of this page, and I'm not going to tell you precisely what it was that I found. I can't remember precisely what it was, but it was a bug in some quite expensive commercial software, so don't be afraid to ask things. We can outsource the things you don't want to do or don't have the time or the patience to learn how to do, and amazingly Fiverr can be quite good for that. I've had some quite geeky technical stuff done on there for $5 or $10 because not everything's $5. The trick is to actually read the reviews and to ask pre-sales questions using the contact link. Most reputable suppliers will be, even on Fiverr, will be happy that you ask because it's just so much easier to say no before you've bought the gig. And you can also use the speed and the quality of the reply to decide your final solution, who you're going to use. I tend to send out 2 or 3 pre-sales requests for the complicated under the hood of the website stuff, but just go straight to the order form if it's just something straightforward like a whiteboard video, and you'll probably know instinctively which route to take. But don't be afraid on Fiverr and elsewhere to use the contact first, because it works. For more complicated tasks, I'll use sites like Freelancer and People Per Hour. Again, no single right answer for whether you to use one of those or another freelance site. Personally, found People Per Hour pretty good for fixed price jobs. They call them hourlies, and also for bigger projects. Freelancer, I've used it in its various predecessors, and usually with good results as long as I choose the person wisely, but sometimes, especially since it's been in its latest incarnation, not quite as good as it was before. Could just be me being nostalgic. But freelance sites can often get you out of a hole. Again, the experience on the people on them varies, and it pays to ask pre-sale questions, and you'll know from how good or bad or evasive the answer is whether or not you should use them. Use your gut reaction on that. Sometimes you'll even get the whole job finished before you've had time to accept it. I've had that before, more than one occasion, and it's a weird but very nice feeling. And then writing has its own freelance sites, and my favourite there is iWrite. If you spec out the job right and go for a higher word count, because the lower word counts seem to attract the less able writers, that's the nicest way of putting it, then the writers there can actually create some quite decent work. It's better in my view to write it yourself, your personality comes through better, but if you want a first draft rather than staring at just that cursor flashing on a blank screen, then a first draft for your content ideas is definitely worth a look. Or there are lots of easy ways to create content that's unique to you without too much brain ache. So again, I'd counsel that you do that rather than outsource, but your choice. And you can even cheat and just get free content if you prefer, because again, that's what I mean about no single right answer. There are sites, Huffington Post for instance, seems to just collate content and thrives pretty much on free content. YouTube doesn't pay for the content it displays. It pays for it in bandwidth, but it doesn't pay you to create it. The important thing is to do it first rather than let it stall you too often, and a ready fire aim approach is often the best way of doing it. The other thing to do is make your content work hard, and for instance this video started out as a 450 word post on a site I'm a member of, and it turned into a just under, well, it's a 1759 word video, a post on my site, and it's now a PDF and this video. And maybe it will become part of a Kindle book as well. It's making it work hard, because why not? And if I wanted to focus on people who like audios, then I could, well, take the soundtrack out of the video, and a program called VLC does that. It's a free download, and use it as a podcast as well. But above all else, just start. That's the best way to find out what works in practice, rather than just all the stuff that might work in theory, might not. If you're still not sure where to start, take a look at the free video linked below this video, where I show you how to use affiliate marketing to get yourself started fast. That works really, really well, and it's a great place to start. So click the link below this video and find out more. Okay, thanks for watching.